Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, October 15th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Hope everyone's doing well on this Thursday morning. Tuesday morning, myself and Cole Sheldon broke down the entirety of UFC Fight Island 6, aka UFC on ESPN Plus 38. I definitely recommend you guys go back and check out Tuesday's edition of the podcast if you missed it. We broke down all the fights on the card. There is an update to the card that I want to get to in a few minutes, but I want to start with Bellator 249. That card takes place tonight. It's Thursday night, so one of these Thursday night Bellator cards that they've been doing. I mean, it could be a good move for Bellator. We'll see. Obviously, the Friday thing wasn't working too well. Saturdays was always a bad idea for Bellator. I don't understand why they ever even bothered going head-to-head with the UFC. But I think Thursday, it could be Bellator's night. This could be what Bellator needs. They need kind of a boost. Maybe the Thursday night thing is going to be something that's really good for them. So tonight we have Bellator 249, Cris Cyborg versus Arlene Blencowe. Odds for that fight, obviously, are pretty monumental right now. So I'll be breaking down the entirety of the card. Going to go over the Tapology, pull out the card, and we'll go right through it from bottom to top. We'll start with the prelims, work our way up. So I'm just pulling it up right now. Pull it up on a second screen here for you guys. And I think almost all the fights have odds. There's one fight I believe that doesn't have odds, but we'll get to that in a second. So let me just share the screen here. This should work. Let's see if this works. Is that working? Yeah, perfect. All right, sounds good. All right, we'll start with this first fight here, guys. Gonzalez versus Castria Zema. Now, you look at the odds for this one. Currently, we have minus 160 on Zema, plus 130 on Gonzalez over at best fight odds. Kind of surprised they even gave a line for this fight because these guys don't have much experience. But either way, right now we have Zema. He is the favorite. I guess it's a cool picture. And he's kind of got what the Punisher thing going on for his weigh-in photo. It's pretty cool. Anyways, this guy's 3 and 4 years old, 28 years old. Zema is. You look at his recent record, man. It's not good. Like, it just makes you wonder. Like, this guy, why is he getting so many shots in Bellator? Almost all his pro fights have come in Bellator. And he's 3 and 4. So I know his wins have been finishes, which is good to see, but the losses have been mostly stoppages. So this guy doesn't look very reliable to me. And you guys know I like putting my money on reliable fighters, and I'm looking at this guy, and there's nothing reliable with a 3 and 4 record. Takes on this guy, Albert Gonzalez, and you talk about, like, not much experience, 1 and 2 record. And he's coming off a loss himself. Bellator, he's 0 and 1. I don't know, guys. Just, like, again, you know, there's a lot of spots on this card. This is not one I'd definitely would not want to put money on this fight because you don't know enough about these guys. You want to bet on guys you know a little bit about. There's not much to know about these guys. I guess I favor Zema a little bit just because of the experience advantage. He's got 7 fights compared to 3 for Gonzalez. But again, that's not a fight I'd want to bet on. This is the fight that doesn't have odds for it. Avov Gonzalez against Logan Neal. I'm not sure why that doesn't have odds. All the other fights do. I guess they just must have missed it, or just because, again, not much footage available in these guys. You look at their records. Gonzalez 4-0, the king they call him. He has fought in Bellator a few times, 4 times now. Got some nice finishes. This one, Imanari roll to heel hook. That's pretty unique. So this guy's definitely got a good ground game. He's fought on a lot of these, like, Israeli cards. Takes on this guy Neil here, who's got 1 fight. So he's got 1 fight, 27 years old. His 1 fight was a victory by submission in Valor Fighting. So that's nice to see. He does have quite a bit of amateur experience as I'm looking through it. So that's nice to see. Again, sometimes these guys don't have much pro experience, so they have a lot of amateur experience. This is one of those guys. So, you know, we don't have odds for it, so I don't have to go crazy on this one. But I would pick Gonzalez just based on the 4 fights. Like, once again, I think the experience is a big advantage. But the fact they don't have odds for this just shows you the odds makers probably weren't confident laying a line on a guy that they don't really know much about at all. Next fight, and this one's pretty interesting. Damon Blackshear against Mike Kimbrell. And right now we have Damon Blackshear minus 260, Kimbrell plus 200. Excuse me, it's Kimbrell, not Kimbrell. I'm thinking about Craig Kimbrell. Anyways, Damon Blackshear, he's 73 years old. They call him the Diamond, so he took Dustin Poirier's nickname, apparently. He's 26 years old, and he's coming off a win in CES. He's fought in that promotion, which is a pretty solid promotion. CFFC, he's a Northeastern United States guy, NEF, so he's fought, you know, a decent amount of promotions here in the Northeast. As far as like success level goes, I mean, he's, 3 and 3 in his last 6? Again, not a reliable guy. And I'm just questioning why he's minus 260 here. I mean, Kimbrell, 3 and 2 now. He's only 23 years old, by the way. Remember that. He's still super young. He came in Bellator and had some nice wins. 2 back-to-back knockouts here, and then He got submitted, and this was a pretty big upset. Picks up a win, and then gets knocked out in his last fight. So people are obviously down on him. The odds makers are down on this guy, but I still feel like he's got some potential. And honestly, at plus 200, I'm taking a shot at him. Mike Kimball here over Damon Blackshear, and definitely it's not a fight you can go crazy on because, again, these guys are not high-level fighters. They're not too reliable, but I just feel like this line doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why it's minus 260 plus 200. It's kind of weird. I think it's a very, very close fight, actually, and I would take the shot on the dog here at plus 200 for sure. And my Bellator picks has actually been pretty good lately. Last week at the Paris card, I got quite a few dogs right in the prelims. Anyways, here, next up, we have a 205-pound fight between Christian Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev. And right now we have Edwards minus 265, Chimaev plus 205. So look at these guys here. Christian Edwards, 3-0. 3-0 record. Only 21 years old, which I like to see. 6'5", 78.5-inch reach. That's nice to see from this guy. 3 straight wins. This is like the grappling boat. 3 straight wins in Bellator, 2 by stoppage. Again, the level of competition, not very good. 3-2, 0-0, 3-1. But this guy's been finishing people, and he's super young, 21 years old. I love that. And I love the fact that he's tall and long. That's good, too. You look at Khamzat Chimaev here, 5-3 record. Khamzat Chimaev, it's like the James Krause kind of thing. He's still a pretty big dude. He's 6'1", but look at that reach, 72.5. The other guy had 78.5. 6-inch reach advantage. That's pretty massive. If you look at Chimaev here, coming off a loss in his last fight, and again, a guy who's been kind of inconsistent, 5-3 record. He's fought in some Canadian promotions like BFL before, which is good to see, but I don't know, man. I mean, coming off the loss here, and then before that, he had won 3 straight fights, but just so inconsistent, 3-3 in his last 6 fights. I couldn't pick this guy. I think Edwards is going to win this fight, guys. Pretty sure he wins probably by knockout. I'd be looking at Edwards here. Again, not a ton of experience, but from what I've seen, he should win this fight. In my 265, you could potentially be parlaying that. I think a lot of people will want to parlay that. Next up, we have we have a welterweight bout between Kyle Kruckmer and Cameron Lachinov. This fight actually opened as a pick'em, which I thought was very surprising because I thought Kruckmer would open as a big favorite. And right now we have Kyle Kruckmer minus 250 and Lachinov plus 190. So the opening line definitely was not a good one. Kruckmer should be a clear favorite here, in my opinion. 6-0 record, 27 years old. The guy's really good. Strong wrestler, man, and he's looked good in MMA so far. He's in 6-0, and he's won both his fights in Bellator, including the last one by anaconda choke. So, guy's definitely impressive. And then Lachinov here, 9-2 record, killer cam they call him. Now he's known for his knee bars. He's got 3 of them in his career, which is impressive. This is a guy that's been fighting on the Bellator prelims. Even for someone that like me who follows Bellator pretty well, this is not really a guy that I know a ton about, even though he's fought a few times in Bellator, just because he's always on the prelims, right? But, you got to like what you see here with the 7 straight wins. Having said that, I still feel like the odds makers blew this line. It should be Kruckmer being a big favorite, and he opened as an underdog, or a pick'em, I should say. So at pick'em odds, that was a no-brainer if you got him there. But I like him even as a decent-sized favorite. I still think Kruckmer wins. I like him quite a bit here, guys. I think he takes Lachinov down, beats him up, maybe gets a stoppage, if not just wins a decision here. But I like him quite a bit to win this fight. It's got to watch out for these knee bars. Next up, we have a middleweight bout between Joseph Creer and Andrew Kappel. And right now for the odds from this one, we have Kappel minus 140, Creer plus 110. So right now, you're looking at Kappel, and this guy had a nice win in his Bellator debut over King Mo. He knocked him out in his first fight in Bellator to win 5 straight fights overall, but then he gets pretty much dominated by John Salter's last fight. John Salter's a pretty good fighter, so no shame in that loss, and he managed to survive almost the full 50 minutes, but still gets tapped out there. It just kind of shows what level he's at. He's not really an elite guy. The King Mo win was kind of a win over a guy who's at the end of his career. You look at this Joseph Creer guy, 7-1-1. The thing I don't like is he's 38 years old. I saw that right away. That's not something I like to see from a guy that's kind of a regional level fighter. Kappel's 35, so he's not young by any means, but 38 is pretty old. This guy's been pretty impressive in his career overall. He did lose the fight to Austin Vanderford by doctor stoppage, but overall he's been pretty impressive. But I got to go with Kappel here. That's my lean in this fight. He does have more experience in Bellator, and he's fought better level competition, I think, throughout his career. So that would be my lean here. But it's not a crazy lean. Kappel's coming off that loss, and I don't know what to expect from him here, but I do think he probably wins this fight. All right, next up, we have a heavyweight bout between Shaun T and Steve Mowry. This is a good fight. The winner of this fight is a really good prospect at heavyweight. I think Steve Mowry is the guy that the UFC could have signed, and I think they kind of dropped the ball on him there. You're looking at this fight, and right now the odds have Steve Mowry as a minus 260 favorite, Shaun T at plus 200. Now, it is a lower level MMA fight. We really have no idea how good these guys are. I've heard nothing but good things about Steve Mowry for a long time now. I've definitely been impressed by what I've seen, and I've heard good things. But again, he hasn't really fought high-level competition. But you look at this guy, he's just a physical specimen. 6'8", 79-inch reach. He's a big dude, 20 years old, right in his prime. He's training down in Florida. He's training with good fighters. And you look at his resume, he was nothing but impressive at Titan and gets signed to Bellator. And since then, 3 wins, 2 by Kimura, 1 by Americana. So that's clearly his move. He wants to get you to the ground, wants to get on top of you, and wants to get that submission. I mean, this guy's impressive. He is. So I really like him a lot. Shaun T is a guy that he's 6'2" call him the Norwegian Nightmare. And Shaun T, pull a little bit wrong thing. Shaun T, 6'2" here. 28 years old. Here's the thing. He was on Contender Series. He lost to Juan Adams by knockout. Looking back, that's not a good loss at all. Juan Adams is not even in the UFC anymore. Also got knocked out by Azuna and Wanyu, who is in the UFC too for a cup of coffee. He got cut. So those losses bother me. He does have a win over Chris Daukaus, though. We should point that out by submission, which is nice. But the inconsistency bothers me. 1-1-1 in his last 3 fights. I don't like that. Yeah, I got to go with Steve Mowry here, guys. I mean, again, he's just nothing but impressive. 7-0. 60, I love this. 6'8", 79-inch reach. I love that. Physical specimen, great submission game. I think he wins for sure. So Steve Mowry's a guy that I personally would parlay because I do think he wins this fight. You know, typically I do tend to stay away from the lower level heavyweight fights, but I'm all in on this guy. I think he's a really good prospect. All right, next up, lightweight. We have Sadawad against Mandel Nello. Right now, Nello minus 250, a Wad plus 210. So look at these guys. Nello, 7-1, Canadian fighter. They call him rat garbage. I think because of his hair or something. I think he's got the rat tail thing going on behind that. But anyways, TriStar Gym guy. And you know what? He's a guy that when he came to Bellator, man, a lot of promise. And he had the 2 straight wins by knockout here over Carrington Banks and Alec Williams. But, you know, last fight gets stopped by Achilles Moto with leg kicks. That it bothered me. And the way he was getting I was struck in that fight. But there's a lot to like about him. He's 6'0" and 75-inch reach for the lightweight division. So he's a big dude for this division. I like that a lot, long reach. And you look at his opponent here, Sadawad. Sadawad has been around a long time. You got to respect this guy. Long-time Bellator veteran, 23-13. But there's a few things not to like here. 37 years old, so he's getting up there in age. Here's what not to like either. 4 straight losses, including back-to-back stoppage losses. You got to give this guy credit. He's been around a long time. He has that win over Will Brooks. I remember betting on him there. I think it was plus 400. That was 7 years ago. Wow, it's crazy. But yeah, I don't like him here, guys. I got to be honest. 4 straight losses. This is a guy you have to fade. So I really like Nello in this fight. I think he wins. I don't like the odds, though. The odds opened much lower. The odds opened at Nello minus 145. I would have taken him there. Minus 250, it's a little more iffy. Awad does have power. He could stop this guy. But overall, I think Nello wins. I just feel like the reach, the height, all that stuff's in his advantage, and he should win this fight. And the age, too. Next up, we have a bantamweight bout between Ricky Bandejas and Leandro Higo. Interesting fight here. Right now, we have Ricky Bandejas minus 160, Higo plus 140. So pretty competitive odds. Ricky Bandejas, very impressive young fighter, 13-4 record, 28 years old. I like this guy's size for the division, 5'10", 70-inch reach. So blessed for the size in this division in bantamweight. I think this guy's been pretty good in Bellator. I mean, you look at some of the wins he has; they're not bad. James Gallagher is a nice win, and even some of these ones before he came to the UFC. To Bellator, he had wins over guys like Merab Dvalishvili, who's in the UFC, and Tony Gravely, who's in the UFC. So this guy has good wins, and I've always liked him. I know he struggled a bit. You look at his last 5 fights, 2 and 3, but look who he lost to. Sergio Pettis, who's probably going to be a champion in Bellator at some point. Patchy Mix, who could be a champion in Bellator at some point. And Juan Archuleta, who just won the belt in Bellator. So those are no bad losses there. Those are 3 really good guys. To be fair, the guys he's beaten in between are not that great, but he does have the win over Gallagher, which looks really good now. Taking on Leandro Higo here. Higo, 19-5 record, 31 years old. They call him Pitbull. He's another guy from the Pitbull team. I've always heard good things about Leandro Higo, and he's been in Bellator for a couple of years now, and he's been up and down. He has the win over Taimonglo, which was nice. The Sean Bunch win his last fight was nice, but you look at the losses. Got stopped by Pico, got stopped by Caldwell, lost a splitter to Dantes. He does have quite a bit of experience, though, fighting for instance, the Ultimate Fighter in Brazil in the 4th season. He beat Steven Peterson, who's in the UFC right now. So this guy's been around a long time. He's been fighting as a pro since 2006. So you got to respect this guy. He's been around forever. But Overall, I got to go with Bandejas here. I like him quite a bit, guys, honestly. Higo is as a good fighter. He's not bad at all, but Bandejas, I think, has a lot of advantages here. I believe he wins a decision here, if not gets a stoppage potentially as well. But I really like Ricky Bandejas. -160 is not bad. I don't think that's a bad line at all. Go to the co-main event here. We have Patricky Pitbull versus Jaleel Willis. And right now, we have Patricky Pitbull is a pretty big favorite, -300, Willis +250. So this is not Patricio Pitbull, this is Patricky Pitbull. Keep that in mind. I always wonder when people that don't know Bellator are betting on these fights and just see Pitbull if they even know which one they're betting on. But either way, Patricky Pitbull, 23-9 record. The guy's been around Bellator for a long time, 34 years old now. He's a veteran of the sport. Again, his brother is the better Pitbull brother. I think that's fair to say, double champ. But this guy's been around for a long time in Bellator since 2011. He's been winning fights at a high level since then. You look at some of the wins over the years, even when he first came to Bellator, like Ray McCullough, Toby Amato was coming off that win at the time over Masvidal, Kurt Pellegrino, who was a former UFC veteran, obviously had a lot of losses in there, Chandler, Alvarez, and those guys are great. But even over the years, he's had some decent wins like Sadawad, Ryan Couture, Kevin Souza. That was a nice win. Josh Thompson, Benson Henderson, Derek Campos, Roger Huerta, Tensura Kawajiri. He's just a solid fighter, man. He's an underrated guy. People don't talk about him. He's not one of the top 10 lightweights. He's not top 15 lightweight in the world, but he's probably a guy that's like in the top 25, top 30. He's a solid fighter. He is coming off a loss, though, in his last fight to Tofik Musayev. But again, that was in a Rising tournament, second fight in the same night. So you got to have at least some consideration on that when you're looking at this fight against Willis. I'll talk about Willis now. I got to point out this guy missed weight, which I don't like. He's also coming down from welterweight. His last fight, he fought in LFA as a welterweight and won the title. So he's moving down to lightweight for this fight, which is very interesting. Overall, Willis, 13-2 record, 28 years old. I mean, there's a lot to like about this kid. Physically, 5'11", 76-inch reach. You got to like that in the lightweight division. And he's on a 4-fight win streak, which is nice to see. Overall, I mean, you look at this level of competition, it's just been okay. I don't think it's been great by any means. He has fought for WSOF. He's fought in Bellator in the past, but now he's back in LFA he went to LFA, and then since then he won the title and came back to Bellator. So I think this was a good sign for Bellator. A little surprised UFC didn't sign this guy because they typically do sign the LFA champions, but Bellator signed him. I just don't like the weight miss. That bothers me. I have no idea how this guy's going to look at lightweight. But I do think there is a lot to like about him besides that. I mean, he's really young, and he's a guy that has, again, a nice little win streak going on here. So I think he's got a chance to win as a dog. I have to go with Pitbull. I got to lean towards him. Just again, the experience in the Bellator cage, and overall, I mean, besides the last loss, he has got quite a bit of momentum coming into this fight too. So my lean would be Pitbull. Probably wins a decision here against Willis, who he's only been stopped once in his career, but I think Willis is kind of a live dog. I just wish he made weight. That definitely bothers me. I don't really know who's going to show up in this fight. Finally, we get to the main event here. It's Cris Cyborg against Arlene Blencowe. And, I mean, you look at the odds for this one, guys. Like, oh, man. Look at the odds for this one. Right now, we got Cris Cyborg -1250, Arlene Blencowe +800. Crazy. All right, so we'll go to Cris Cyborg here. And, obviously, you have to favor here. I mean, the odds show that. 22-2 record. She's one of the greatest fighters of all time, the women's divisions. 35 years old, and she's still fighting at a high level. Looked great in her last three fights against Bud, just destroyed her. And then the Felicia Spencer fight was a beating too. The loss to Nunes obviously got caught in that fight. It was a crazy fight, but what else are we gonna say about Cris Cyborg? I mean, she's fought and defeated like most of the best fighters in the world for like the last 15 years. She's an incredible fighter, and you gotta love Cris Cyborg, man. And to me, this is definitely a squash match. Blencowe, 13-7 record, 37 years old. She's even older than Cyborg. She's not been around that long, but she's even older than Cyborg. She's been fighting as a pro 7 years now. And she is coming off 3 straight wins, so I'll give her that. But overall, there's just not much to like about her here, I don't think. Cris Cyborg, just much more polished fighter, much more polished striker. The question is, does this Blencowe, does she survive the full 25 minutes, or does she get stopped? I'm leaning towards a stoppage, but she is pretty tough. You look through her record, she's been submitted a few times, but never been stopped with strikes. I think this is going to be the first time she gets stopped with strikes. My pick is Cris Cyborg by stoppage. There's no prop for that, unfortunately. Maybe keep an eye out today to see if a prop comes out, if you guys want to bet on that. But my pick would be Cris Cyborg by knockout. I don't think I'm going on that limb there. I think that's a pretty safe pick. All right, so that's it for the Bellator 249 preview. So let's go to some news here. Conor McGregor, he says he's agreed to fight Dustin Poirier in January. And Dana White said he was offered a fight to Conor and to Dustin, and apparently Conor McGregor has agreed to that fight now. So that's a fight that I think all the fans want to see. It does suck that we're not going to see the Dustin Poirier-Tony Ferguson fight. It seems like that fight, for some reason, has just kind of slipped by the wayside. But Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier is a tremendous fight. I can't wait to see this fight. We have seen this fight once, as we all know, back in 2014. That was 6 years ago. They're different fighters now. Conor McGregor did win that fight in the first round by KO, but it was at 145. It was 6 years ago. Dustin Poirier is a much different fighter now. He's a much more confident fighter, a much more accomplished fighter, a much more well-rounded fighter. I think that loss really changed his career because Dustin Poirier moved up to lightweight after that. And since moving up to lightweight, he's been nothing but a stud. So you look at the betting odds for that fight right now. Right now, Conor McGregor minus 180, Dustin Poirier plus 155. You know, guys, I think a lot of people are going to bet on Conor. He always gets money. He's a public fighter. But I really think that Dustin Poirier has a good chance to win this rematch. And I was a guy that bet heavy on Conor the first time. I think I parlayed her with Castria on that card. And Kat had a real tough fight with Amanda Nunes, came back and won. But, yeah, I'm thinking that Dustin Poirier actually has a good shot to win this rematch, just based on the high level he's been fighting and much more active too. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the fight's not official by any means, but it looks like there's a really good chance that Conor McGregor could fight Dustin Poirier in January, which would be awesome. Now you look at some of the other news here. UFC 256, Amanda Nunes will be headlining that card now against Megan Anderson. So the headliner was supposed to be Kamaru Usman against Gilbert Burns, but that fight was scratched. I don't know when that fight's going to happen. Hopefully in January. It feels like Burns hasn't fought in a while. He was fighting every week, and then all of a sudden he hasn't fought in, like 4 or 5 months now. So you got to love Gilbert Burns, though. I mean, the guy, he was pretty much like the COVID-era fighter, and he definitely deserves that shot against Kamaru Usman. But that fight's off the card. So now the main event is Amanda Nunes against Megan Anderson, and the co-main event will be Aljamain Sterling against Petr Yan for the UFC bantamweight title. I'll talk about that fight in a few minutes, a little bit more detail. But overall, I mean, it's not the strongest, I don't think, card to end the year. I think that a lot of fans were hoping they'd get Conor on that card, or maybe Stipe Miocic on that card against Nagano, or possibly Adesanya on that card against someone. But at the end of the day, there's still 2 title fights. Nunes Anderson, Yan Sterling. It's pretty good. We already have the odds up for Anderson and Nunes. We've had them for a while, and I'm just looking at an update right now. Amanda Nunes minus 900. And Megan Anderson plus 540. I'm not too sure how many people are going to like Megan Anderson in that fight. Amanda Nunes, once again, will probably dominate the fight and get another stoppage. Looking at some other news here, UFC on ESPN plus 38. That's this weekend's card. Unfortunately, had one late scratch. This one's interesting. So Ciryl Gane was supposed to fight Ante Delija in a heavyweight bout in the co-main event. Ciryl Gane, I talked about him with Cole on Tuesday. I'm very high on him. Most people are. I mean, the guy's a prospect, man, at heavyweight. 6-0, 3-0 in the UFC. He heel hooked Ante Delija. I mean, who gets a heel hook at heavyweight? So the guy's super impressive. I gotta like the guy a lot. But you know, Delija is a guy that's interesting because you look at his resume. He's fought quite a bit of guys over in Europe and now in the States. A guy who's fighting in PFL, a guy fighting Risen. The problem is the PFL fight. PFL says they have him under contract and they wouldn't let him fight. So unfortunately, Delija was not able to fight due to contractual issues, and I'm sure the UFC will try to fight that. I think it's pretty lame the PFL stepped in and did that. You know, I like the PFL. It's a nice option for fighters. Obviously, a lot of guys have won $1 million. Sean O'Connor, Lance Palmer, a bunch of guys. Even Philippe Lins, didn't he win $1 million? It's crazy, right? But the problem is the way that their contracts are so really ironclad now. You see guys like Palmer suing them because he wants out. A guy like Brendan Lofton signed with them can't get a fight now because they're not doing events. So unfortunately, Delija seems to be part of that group of fighters now that's having problems with PFL. I don't agree with this move at all. I mean, we've seen this happen in other promotions before. They'll block a fighter. Even a few months ago, there was a fight in there was a fighter that fought in Kabachi. I think he fought Merab. Can't remember his name now, but Campbell McLaren at first had blocked it, and then he changed his mind, and he's like, you know, I'll let this kid fight. I just think it's lame of PFL not to let this guy fight because you think about it, there's no fights right now going on in PFL, so they really should have let this guy out of his contract and fight in the UFC. The fact they blocked it at the last minute is really crappy. I mean, this guy was probably already cutting weight. He's already in Abu Dhabi too, so really lame, but it does suck that fight got canceled. Maybe he'll be able to run it back. I just hope for this guy's sake he's able to get out of that deal with PFL and is able to stay in the UFC because that's where all the fighters want to be. And Delija, I think, is a pretty good prospect, even though I think this was a really tough matchup against Ciryl Gane. Dana White was asked about the Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. That's this weekend's main event. And once again, you can listen to the podcast or check out my written preview over at MMAOddsbreaker.com for the main event. Now, I think a lot of us assume this would be a number one contender fight. And now we have confirmation from Dana White. It is a number one contender fight. The winner will get a title shot against Alex Volkanovski, which I think is okay. I mean, especially if it's the Zombie. He's won 2 straight fights. This would be a third straight win over a guy in Brian Ortega, who is currently ranked number 2. But I mean, it's just kind of crazy that if Brian Ortega goes in there and he gets the upset win, and I know, and he could. I mean, Brian Ortega is a really good fighter. He could go out there and get the upset. If he does, he'll skip by guys like Calvin Kattar, who's been fighting so actively, a guy like Zabit, who has been fighting so actively for the most part, and a guy like Yair Rodriguez just had some injury troubles, but for the most part, he's been an absolute stud, and he already has a head-to-head win over Korean Zombie, too. It would be kind of crappy if Brian Ortega got the win here and then gets a title shot over those guys, in my opinion. So maybe the UFC will change their mind if Ortega wins, but I think if Zombie wins, 100% he gets the shot, just because of the name value, because of the excitement value. And again, the loss to Rodriguez, and that was 2 years ago now. You know, Rodriguez, unfortunately, hasn't really capitalized on that. He hasn't been very active due to injuries. So I think the guy that's getting screwed here is Zabit. Zabit's a guy that wanted to fight Yair. Yair is the one who pulled it with injuries a couple times now. I think Zabit's kind of getting screwed here, but it looks like he'll probably have to fight again. And I know he probably doesn't want to. He probably feels like he deserves that title shot, but it looks like Zabit might have to fight one more time before he gets his own title shot. Next up, we have Khamzat Chimaev. So once again, you know, he's called out all these guys in the top 5, top 10 of the UFC welterweight division. But right now, it's looking like Neil Magny could be the guy that gets the fight here. Neil Magny, he's been pretty open that he wants to fight. Dana White mentioned Neil Magny by name yesterday and said, you know, I got to respect Neil. He's the only guy who's really stepped up and said he wants to fight, but they haven't made the fight yet. So UFC, clearly they like Khamzat. We all do. They want to give him a step up to like a serious level competition, top 5, top 10 kind of guy. Neil Magny is ranked number 10. I think that's the perfect matchup. I've been saying it for a few weeks now. I think that's the perfect fight. Neil Magny versus Khamzat Chimaev. But again, it's going to be up to the UFC what they want to do. If they choose not to do that fight, I don't know who else they're going to give him, though. Because at this point, none of these guys in the top 5 want to fight Khamzat. And honestly, who can blame them? You look at guys like Wonder Boy, a guy like Leon Edwards. These guys have been fighting for their rankings for a long time. They deserve to fight against high-level guys like that. A guy like Khamzat, he's won 3 straight fights, but he's beaten 3 guys that are not ranked. Jalen Mearshart was a good win for him, but he's not a ranked guy. So to me, it's kind of unfair this guy's able to waltz in and kind of get a top 5 opponent and ask for them when guys like, for instance, Jeff Neal, who's won 5 fights in a row, he can't even get an opponent. I think Magny's the perfect fight. I hope they make that fight. It's a fair fight. I think Magny has a good chance to win. I think that's why the UFC doesn't want to make the fight, because I think they feel like Magny stylistically has a really good chance to win with his cardio, with his just overall pace. In a 5-round fight, I think you have to favor Magny a little bit because of the cardio and the pace. I know Khamzat's amazing, but I think that's a really, really interesting fight. So I hope they make that fight. I hope they're going to make the Magny Chimaev fight. And this one's kind of interesting. Jessica Andrade, she spoke about potentially making more history and moving up to 145. She said she's open to it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that she was just kind of saying it as a joke, but it'd be interesting to see her fight in 4 weight classes. She was a beast even at 135. She's a very strong fighter, as we know, but I'm curious to see how this fight this weekend goes against Chikagian at 125. I don't know. We talked about on the podcast, and I know Andrade is favored, and I really like Andrade, but I'm starting to think Chikagian has some decent value as an underdog there. And just quickly, we have 2 fight announcements to talk about. Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. That fight is official, like I mentioned, for UFC 256 in December. And we do have odds for that right now. Minus 130 Yan and plus 110 Sterling. So super close odds, but right now we have Petr Yan is a very small favorite, which I definitely think is fair. He actually opened, I think, at minus 180 this morning. Minus 185 early this morning. So early action coming on Sterling, but super early. Small limits right now. And this fight will get a lot of action, I'm sure. But I do think Yan should be favored here based on his body of work so far in the UFC. Sterling's been incredible, but we've seen him lose a few times in the UFC. Never seen Yan lose a fight in the UFC. I think Petr Yan will be favored quite a bit in that fight by the time we get to the fight. I think minus 130 right now, if you're going to take Yan, that's not a bad line at all. But again, the limits are low. You can only probably bet a few $100, I think, guess. Next up, Joaquin Buckley versus Jordan Wright. This is another fight that's going to happen. This was at UFC 255. So Buckley getting back in there pretty short notice against Wright. You got a month to train for this fight. Man, Buckley coming off that insane knockout win over Impa Kasanganay. You got to like Buckley in this fight. I mean, Wright is pretty good. We saw him beat Phil Nueva in his first fight by doctor stoppage, and he's a guy who's technically undefeated, but he did lose to Anthony Hernandez by strikes. Anthony Hernandez tested positive for marijuana, and the result was overturned. But overall, I mean, I think you got to like Buckley in this fight, just based on the last win. Now, the question is he going to be hyped up too much now because of that win? And you're going to forget about the loss to Kevin Holland. We'll see. But either way, he should be favored in this fight. I would assume he's going to be like a minus 300 favorite if I had to guess, because of that win. Everyone's going to want to bet on Joaquin Buckley. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for today's podcast, guys. A little bit of a shorter show, half an hour, but hope you guys got some insight into Bellator 249 with me. That takes place tonight on CBS Sports Network, so definitely watch that card if you're itching for some MMA. And there's definitely some spots on it. I'm looking at it right now, and there's some good spots on it for maybe some parlays and a few underdogs. So definitely, watch that card tonight. But of course, Saturday's card, UFC on ESPN Plus 38. That's the card we're all looking forward to. Really good card. Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega. Again, Tuesday, myself and Cole Sheldon, we broke down the entire card. Over at MMAOddsbreaker.com, I have my full written preview for the main event, for the opening odds. And over at MMAratings.net, I have an article there that I would love for you guys to check out on Joaquin Buckley. And my question is, whether or not he's basically a one-hit wonder, or if he's going to be a guy who's going to be in contention for a long time at 185. So definitely check that out. And bjpen.com, always there with the news. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin. I hope you have an awesome day, everyone, and a great weekend. And for sure, remember to subscribe and share the podcast over at YouTube, MMAOddsbreaker.com/YouTube, or at Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of other places. And I'm going to get this last question from Marcus before I get out of here. Hey, Marcus, how are you, man? I'm happy to see Sterling get the Yan fight. Timing of the fight, I suspect, makes me think Moraes would have got Yan if he beat Sandhagen. Sterling should have been booked a long time ago. I do agree with you, Marcus, as well on this one. The fact they just announced this once Moraes lost makes me think that he might have got that title shot as well. And you look at it, and Moraes, he's an impressive guy, and he had the win over Sterling. He had a win over Aldo. He had some good wins, but I think that Sandhagen took a lot of the steam out of the sails, and Moraes is pretty far back now in this division's title picture, unfortunately. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. I hope you have an amazing weekend. I'll be back Tuesday, 10 a.m., break down UFC 254 and recap this weekend's Fight Island card. Have an amazing weekend, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.